It is Wednesday, my dudes, and even though I am kind of serving major Bruce Banner vibes here with the purple and the green, we're here to talk about episode 4 of Hawkeye, titled Partners, Am I Right? And guys, I may be running on a lack of sleep today. I may have stayed up till 4 a.m. to watch this episode and been extremely tired afterward, but boy, was this one worth it. Hawkeye episode 4 is a perfect, brilliantly paced episode, and honestly, it makes me realize how each of the episodes thus far have really just kind of improved. I honestly think that each episode has kept a similar pacing with giving us action sequences, comedy and banter between Kate and Clint, while also giving us like the emotions that really do tie it back to the rest of the MCU. I like just that we have that action and comedy and world building in each episode. I like that we have that balance in each episode, and it builds off of itself really, really nicely. In this episode, I loved how it opened. That's another thing I love with this show that really, also lends itself to pacing, is picking up right where they left off. Like, this show is king of cliffhangers. We talked a lot about how like some of the later episodes of Loki really nailed the cliffhangers, but in this episode, we've consistently gotten them each week, and then the next week's episode picks off exactly where it left off. I think they've just done such an intentional job about the episode will start here, and then we'll end here, and the next episode will pick up here, and like they have just a clap for the directors, the creatives, the writers on this show, just everyone involved. You guys are killing it. Thank you for doing justice to this series. I know that they're going to continue it in the next 2 episodes because they've paced everything so well that they haven't left themselves so much to do in the last 2 episodes, where I feel like some of the other shows kind of did, but we'll get into that later. I really loved this episode and how it focused on Kate and Clint's kind of personality collisions and how like there's a give and take there, but ultimately there is going to come conflict. So I like that we got to see them most of the episode getting along, getting in the Christmas spirit, Kate trying to almost tone herself down and be a little bit more of Clint's helper versus trying to do things on her own. But then obviously once the apartment building scene happens and she is attacked and we have that horrid stress-inducing flashback to Natasha falling, and that parallel with Kate. One, great job to everyone on the project because you guys really got me. You had me crying there. But I thought it was great because it shows that he is building this type of relationship with Kate. Even though she's younger and she's a lot different than Natasha and she's very much a go-getter, she's also similar to Natasha in the sense that they have a different way of going about things, and Natasha was a little bit more like for the fun of it, whereas Hawkeye's kind of always just been the weighed down kind of Avenger type guy. And I love that collision of their personalities, but I like that here it feels like we have a really natural midpoint for the season. Now obviously episode 4 and the end of episode 4 would hypothetically put us at past the midpoint, but I kind of have a feeling, just with the way that the pacing of the story has worked, that the next 2 episodes will be closer to maybe the 50 or 60 minute mark, and therefore kind of contain that just extra little bit of narrative information we're going to need to close this series up and wrap it with a bow, if you know what I'm saying. You got my reference. I know you did. High five. I love us. Look at us.
Hey, look at us.
But I do just like that we have them coming together in this episode and also splitting them apart, because not only is that conflict enough for the episode, but it sets us up for the rest of the series that like they're not just going to be total teammates now. Obviously there's certain shots that we've seen, we know they're going to reunite and be fine, but I really like the added pressure that this is placing on the series and on their relationship as mentor and mentee. And I think it also, again, has those nice parallels to Natasha, who got brought up several times in this episode. This episode, before we see Yelena, there are 3 mentions of Natasha. We have Eleanor mention Natasha, we have Laura mention Natasha, and we also have Clint discussing Natasha with Kate Bishop about the shot he never took. The emotion was so raw there, and Jeremy Renner really does play this character so well, and I don't think it's going to get talked about enough in the series, so I'll just be the one person to do it. I know he's not the most popular actor within the MCU franchise, but I know with all of the love that Haley is getting for her portrayal of Kate, which is well deserved, I really do think Jeremy deserves that too, because as much as he has been working with Scarlett for 10 years now as these best friend roles, he really digs deep into that grief of someone who has lost basically their partner in crime, someone who has chosen family, and someone who also is very much tied up in both his past and present. And all of the different story arc beats of Clint's character have been defined largely by Natasha, not only in this universe, but in the one that we saw in What If, in the post-apocalyptic future. And of course, that leads to the reveal of, spoiler alert, Yelena. We finally saw her. I absolutely love that Clint was able to pick up right away due to the fighting style and the type of weaponry she used, that she was a widow. I like the fact that he does not know that it is Yelena, aka Natasha's adoptive sister, because I think that's going to really add some nice emotional closure for him. But I definitely see the story splitting off in two ways now that Clint and Kate are going their own way. I see Kate going after Yelena and them kind of bonding, because Yelena doesn't have the same hatred for her that she does for Clint, believing that he is the one responsible for Natasha's death. So I see her going after Yelena, and also the fact because their relationship as the new Hawkeye and the new Black Widow needs to be established, because I want all of the shows and all the projects with them. And Haley Steinfeld posted on her Instagram story today, thank God for Florence Pugh. And I mean, like, same girl, same, feel that exact same way. But then I see Clint going after the tracksuits and shutting them down, but ultimately needing Kate's help, or needing a little bit more of her overeager persona and approach to being a superhero that's ultimately going to save the day and get them back home. Also, can we have a round of applause for Laura Barton popping off knowing Russian? This woman is a mother badass, and I am obsessed with her. Like, if I could be any Avenger when I grew up, it would be Laura Barton. This woman is a mother. She is doing intel on the side. She's the man in the chair. And she is running point for her husband, getting him all this background information. And just, like, she's amazing. And I've had a couple people comment that maybe they're going to try to introduce her as Mockingbird, but to me, I've heard rumors that there's a Mockingbird from the Defenders series and or from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. background that Marvel may try to reuse the actress of. And as much as I like the idea of Laura Barton having a little bit of a past with S.H.I.E.L.D. or something like that, I feel like it would be a waste to retcon her as Mockingbird and then not really see more of her in the future, because as has been said, it kind of makes sense for Clint to go off and be a family man now that there's a new Hawkeye to take over that mantle, rather than continuing with the Avengers when there's a lot more work cut out for him that I think younger people should be able to take on at this point. Not saying he's not able to handle it on his own, because we see in this episode how slick he is. The way he steals the Ronin sword and then kind of before Kazi even gets in the car, finds and takes away all of his weapons. And then he's also just such, like, he gives no craps about anything. Throw in the gun just when Kazi asked for it back was just one of the funniest moments of this episode. And I truly just love his character in this type of kind of like espionage type comedy. Like, you would never think those two things go together, but I think they just really fit with a character like Hawkeye. And again, props to the creatives and the writers and the directors and everyone on board with the development and production of this show, because they have found such a brilliant way to apply a character type to a genre in such a way that it just works. I love that. The one thing I didn't love about this episode, which again, it's not that big of a deal, I'm just curious how it's going to play into it. Jack Duquesne in the comics is Clint Barton's mentor. He's the one that teaches him to become a living weapon, which there was a reference to in this episode, which I loved. Stay tuned for my comic book comparisons videos that will be coming as more of these episodes come out. But I didn't love the fact that there was clearly no connection between them. I kind of wanted both of them to be playing like a bomb under the table game that Alfred Hitchcock would refer to, when the dramatic irony of a viewer knowing something like a bomb is under the table, but none of the characters can really react to it. Like, that adds a lot of tension, and I felt like that wasn't utilized highly enough, because it still feels at this point that other than Jack Duquesne being the owner of Sloan, which is the front for the Tracksuit Mafia, it sort of seems like at the end of the day, he can wipe his hands and be clean from this, and I really do want to see the more villainous side of him and potentially Eleanor come to light and have Clint believe Kate, which I feel like there's a twist coming that nobody is expecting. We get the uncle thing, we've seen Yelena now, but I'm ready for something that I think is coming, and I'm really excited for it. What did you think of this episode? Please let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to leave a like, and of course any predictions you have for the future episodes, and do not forget that every Wednesday morning at about 2 to 2:30 a.m. I am doing live watch parties, and this time we tried to do what is called Teleparty, which is formerly known as Netflix Party. It's so that everyone can be synced on a stream of an episode episode at the same time, and there is a Google Chrome plugin for it. So I'm going to leave a link down below to Teleparty. Not sponsored, not at all like affiliated with them. This is just something I want to try out for next week's stream. So go in there and download the Chrome extension. It is completely safe. They do not save or access any of your passwords or personal information as far as your streaming services go. But if you have a Disney Plus subscription, I'm going to send you a link in the chat of next week's live stream that you can join and be completely synced up with me. I will continue to do the timer as normal for anyone who does not have Google Chrome or has to watch on a mobile device, but I think it could really be fun. So be sure to go down and check that out if you're at all interested, and join me next week for that watch party for the penultimate episode of Hawkeye. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe for more reviews like this, as well as Marvel related content, and I will see you all in my very next video. Bye y'all.